morning. My name's Dean Lewis and this morning we're going through a series of short videos on horse assessment for the owner and or vet, trainer, just basically anyone who deals with horses, up to the professional farrier. Right? So when we first get a horse in, the first thing we need to do is assess the horse. It's very similar to going to hiring a car at the airport. First thing you do is walk around the car and make sure it's got no dents and scratches on it. Right? That's how it is. Right? So what we call this is gross anatomy of the horse. Right? So it's what we can see with our eyes. So we bring the horse in. As it's walking towards us, we assess it. As the owner's bringing it in, we assess it. The way it's walking, whether it's lame or it's not lame, how it's walking, that sort of thing. So we call that dynamic assessment. But this is what we're doing here, is the gross assessment of the horse. So first and utmost, we must have the rug off the horse. Right? So we've taken the rug off the horse. We have a look at him. We assess his body, assess his age, ask the history of the horse. His age is very, very important in that if this horse is a foal, obviously, we've still got growth plates that are open. If he's an older horse, there may be other indications of both bone changes, bone growth, and so on and so forth. Right? So the age is imperative that we know the age of the horse. We look at what the horse is used for, whether he's used for road work, paddock trim, whatever it might be, right? So then we assess the horse. As we just go over him, basically just running your hands over the horse, looking for any blemishes. When I say blemishes, it's something that you should do every day with your horse just to make sure there's no cuts or scratches or bruises, abrasions or anything on the horse, that he's in good condition. We look to see how skinny or fat he is, right? Might be an indication of whether the horse might have cushions or something like that. Run our hands down his back, make sure that he feels nice and fluent as we run our hands over him, right? His head, his ears. So basically, all of these things that we do when we see a horse first thing in the morning, be it we're a strapper or a trainer or a vet or a farrier or a trimmer, doesn't matter. What we have to do is go and look at this horse, do the assessment, and what we're looking for are things that are normal. Right? If we don't know what's normal, we'll never know what's abnormal. Right? So quite often we look at horses and people try to look in to say, well, you know, has it got this problem, or has it got that problem, or has it got this problem. You've got to know what looks normal to be able to ascertain what is abnormal. So what we're looking for is a normal walk around the horse. Obviously, you walk around both sides of the horse, you assess the horse in every manner, look at him from the front, the other side, from the camera point of view. We're not going to walk around there today, but basically that's what we do. Pick his legs up, make sure everything's okay, right? And apart from the fact that he's a little chubby, this one, I suppose people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, but apart from the fact he's a little bit chubby, he's in pretty good order, right? So then what we do, after we've assessed his body statically, we start assessing the front limb. And what we look for when assessing the front limb is, what we must remember is that the front limb of a horse is not connected, the bones of a front limb are not connected to the skeleton via bone. They're only connected to the skeleton via fascia, tissue and muscle. So the front legs, independent, the scapula pushes up into the horse's body there, a thoracic sling goes around, made of muscle, fascia and tissue, and that's what holds the horse together. A horse doesn't have a clavicle or a collarbone as a human does, right? So if we want to assess front legs, we come and we look at them from the side, which will give us an indication of lateromedial or medial lateral balance. Right, so we look at it from the side. You can use a little line if you want to assess how straight it is, whether the horse is back at the knee, whether he's got any blemishes, whether his hoof pastern axis, which is the most important aspect of what we're doing, is in the right plane. So we don't want the hoof pattern axis to be, we don't want him low on the heel and long on the toe. We don't want him too upright. We want the bones to be uniform and lined up. Now we can see externally indicators that show us, obviously if we want to take it a step further and we have an issue, we get a vet out and we x-ray it. So similarly, we come forward on the horse and we can use our little laser line there too. And what we're looking for there is to see if these bones here, and you can see it clear on the bones, as to whether they're lined up straight. And you see on this skeleton here, that horse isn't very straight, it's offset. It is what we call carpal valgus, so knock-kneed. This horse in particular, as I assess his legs statically, I can see that his foot is turned over and so he's pigeon-toed. He's pigeon-toed because he's offset in the knee, and that has made this horse what we call fetlock varus, right? So he's pigeon-toed and his fetlock's out. His foot's turned in to try and compensate for that abnormality or conformational fault. But what we do as a farrier, as a trimmer, is try to normalise things. So we cannot change the conformation in a horse like this, and you couldn't have changed the conformation in this horse's knee even when he was young because it's offset. Right? We may have been able to assist the growth plates in the bottom before the age of 6 months, right? But that wasn't done with this horse. So what effectively happens then is that the foot compensates for the abnormality and it shifts over to one side. And when we shoe this horse later, we might shoe him later today, and when we're assessing him, we know that we have to be aware of that and try and give him a little bit more support on the outside. Right? So we assess him visually that way, and then the most important part for anybody is to learn how to pick a horse's leg up properly to assess it. So make sure his head's straight, and when we pick his leg up, your inside hand has to be out of the way. You have to hold the horse at the bottom of the cannon bone, right? Metacarpus, right? Let it hang, making sure that the horse's head's straight. If the horse's head moves towards me, the horse's foot moves over. If the horse's head moves away from me, again it moves and it changes the medial lateral balance. So what we're trying to do is ascertain the angle or the balance of that horse's foot in relation to his cannon bone, right? So it's the long axis of the cannon bone that we're trying to align. If we hold it with the outside hand, it doesn't influence anything. So what I tend to do, as if nobody's there holding the horse, is I keep my other hand that's out of the way and make sure that he's holding his head straight, make sure that he's holding it up, not bobbing his head around, so I can get a proper assessment of that particular leg. As soon as we pick the leg up with this hand or start pointing it with our thumb, we become short bone farriers or short bone trimmers, right? Because all we're doing is looking at, when we point it, all we're doing is looking at the foot. And if we hold it there, we're straight away moving the leg out because this arm is interfering with the alignment, so we must hold it with the outside hand, right? Again, we can bring the horse's foot forward, right? And we can just look down and see the alignment of the cannon bone to the hoof again. So it just hangs there. But we can do that with the front leg because it swings independently, right? And that's how we assess a front leg. To assess a hind limb is completely different because this time what the horse has is a muscle that comes down here and splices off to two tendons that join it to the bone. It is called the peroneus tertis, right? It is what makes a hind leg a reciprocal apparatus. What it means by a reciprocal apparatus is any time I pick this horse's foot up, because of that muscle and those tendons, the fetlock must flex, right? It is not independent. not like the front leg, it just hangs there, and front leg will hang there and swing. Back leg won't, because it's influenced by that tendon and muscle. So if we pick up a back leg and we come under it, and often you see farriers or trimmers or anyone look down the foot and say, well, yeah, that's not alignment. You can't tell that way. It's absolutely impossible to tell. So what we need to do when we assess hind legs is assess hind legs on the ground so that they're weight bearing. Right, so he steps back and he's weight bearing. I can look with my little laser line straight down and see where his alignment is. So I should be standing at the horse's shoulder, and his foot should be pointing towards the centre of my body. Right? Similarly, as we did in the front foot, we can come over to the side and we can look at the anatomical makeup of that horse's back leg there on the side. And again, we walk around to the back of the horse and we use our laser line there too, and we can see any blemishes or conformational faults that are within it. But as soon as we pick that back foot up, that foot's influenced by that tendon and that ligament, tendon and muscle, sorry. So cannot be assessed in the air like that. The only thing you can see from picking it up that way is whether the foot's flat or not. You won't be able to tell medial lateral imbalance. Right, so that's how we assess horses, both front and hind, and statically. Gross anatomy is what we see with our eyes. Obviously, each day we come in and we work with our horses, we have to ascertain what we're going to do with the horse, how we're going to go about it, and all this information is going through your head. It doesn't necessarily have to be written down letter for letter, but we're always assessing something. We're going to figure out how we're going to put a shoe on it. We're going to figure out how we're going to trim it. We're going to figure out what's wrong with it today, what's right with it today. Is the horse in good order? All these things have to go through your mind. It's all about assessing the horse. And the one thing about it is, the more you know about your anatomy, the more you'll be aware of what's going on with the horse. There's been many a time that I've been shoeing horses at racing stables and different stables, and I've walked in, the horse has had a rug on, they've walked the horse in and presented it to be shod, and you run your hand down its leg and say, has its tendon always been this bad? And so we didn't realise it had a bow tendon. Right? So that's about assessment. It's not just for farriers, it's not just for trimmers, it's for vets, it's for horse owners, it's for strappers, it's for anybody that cares for a horse. Carers, anyone. Make sure that you know what's going on with your horse. That's from us at Australia. All the best. Have fun with it.